So, chances are that if you're watching this video, you might already kind of know what's up with Pendulum. It's an ambitious new Stonemaier game that's set in a fantasy world, and instead of restricting you based off of turns, you're restricted by the very power of time itself, as marked by these little sand timers here, which are effectively the same things you kept on stealing from your grandma's Pictionary set. But we're going to set these aside for the moment because to really understand Pendulum, you got to ask yourself, besides the real-time aspect, really, what is this game? At its core, Pendulum is a worker placement and resource conversion game. Throughout 4 rounds, players place workers in locations which will either grant goods of 3 different colors, points of 3 different colors, or little purple chiclets used to represent votes. Though, don't worry, you don't actually vote on anything. These are theoretical, abstract votes, which somehow feels a little too real. Initially, you have 2 workers, a regular and a special grande worker, who is able to be placed at locations where workers are already at. The majority of action spaces cost the yellow resource, gold, to activate and give you resources based on 4 different columns on your player board, which can be enhanced through conquering. Though, don't worry, you don't actually conquer other player stuff. These are theoretical, abstract conquer cards from a market, paid for with the red military cubes, and can be rotated and assigned to the appropriate column, generating more red, yellow, or blue cubes, red, yellow, or blue points, or more theoretical, abstract votes. And the last big element you have control of is the cards in your hand, which are largely made up of the 4 cards specific to your character and can be played to get more workers, more resources, rescue workers locked in locations, or some slightly more tricky stuff. Player cards can be bounced back into your hand and played again, usually by spending 5 blue culture cubes. But don't worry, you don't actually have to worry about the political exchange of competing cultures and theoretical abstract conquered terrains. These are just theoretical abstract blue culture cubes. You get the idea. So it's a game of resource management. You get the colored cubes in order to more efficiently take your actions, and then you use those actions to get the colored points. The catch is, like I said earlier, that you aren't governed by turns, you're governed by time. So all of the worker placement locations in the game are separated into these 3 colored sections, and each of those sections has 2 rows. And one of those rows is going to be currently occupied by a timer, and those timers correspond to 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or 0.75 minutes, well, 45 seconds for those keeping score. And being that there's no turns, players can freely assign their dudes to available locations, obeying certain restrictions. You can only assign or move from locations in rows where the timer is not, and you can only resolve actions in sections where the timer is. And what might not be immediately obvious is that a timer can just sit there at a time, and that's not inherently breaking the game or anything. It just means that workers can't be added to or taken from the row where the timer is, and the workers who are in the other row can't resolve any of their actions because the timer is not. So at any time, any player can take a timer that has run out, flip it upside down, and place it on the other row in its section, meaning the once locked-in dudes can be moved and the newly locked-in dudes can activate. Now the purple 3-minute timer, which holds back the juiciest of actions, is special because it has 3 time tokens, and upon its initial round starting flip and 2 subsequent flips, you'll be knocking away those time tokens, and once all 3 are knocked off the board, a council is called, and timers can no longer be flipped for the round. Players resolve any remaining actions that they can, then see who had the most votes to determine who gets bonuses and first pick of special cards, which could be new reusable cards in hand, one-time effects, or upgrading workers to more powerful grande workers that can be placed in worker locations where there are already workers. And then a new round begins, and that's pretty much it. So let's talk about endgame. After the 4th council, the game ends and the winner is determined based on whoever managed to get all of their point rows into the positive section of their board, with tiebreakers based on overshooting if multiple people made it, or by closest to making it if nobody did. Scoring is kind of intriguing, but also feels kind of needlessly complex. The best way to think of it is like there's a point debt in 3 different colors which change based off of your character, and you need to be in the black on all 3 colors to win. Oh, and you need to get this big bad shiny daddy at least once in the game for the 4th single point row. This is the last twist of Pendulum, which I actually thought was pretty clever, in that each round there's going to be a legendary achievement card on display where people can pay cubes or chiclets to get some reward. Likely it's going to be more points or cubes or chiclets or a territory card. But if no one else has claimed it this round, you can get the dope metal legendary achievement token, adding that point to your track, signifying that you can focus the rest of the game on your red, yellow, blue efficiency engine to your heart's content, and that's the game. Here's the deal with Pendulum. If we are looking at this just as the central gimmick, a turnless worker placement game where time itself is a resource that you have to manage, they pull it off. The system is competently designed, adding pressure to your actions, but not in such a way that it feels like a frantic mad dash to the best spots. It's strategic and has decent engine building and a unique tempo unlike anything else on the market. I just wish the game underneath weren't so bland. This is an abstract color-based efficiency engine, and that's okay. It feels really good to be efficient at this game, but there's no dramatic modular elements or adaptive strategies to employ. You just more or less try to get better at playing the game the same way every time. Yes, you can cultivate more production of different resources, or your asymmetric powers through your cards may make production of some cubes or points or votes slightly different, but it's all about shuffling quantities and colors, so it feels sort of like an artificial asymmetry. And don't get me wrong, I like abstract games, but for the housing, the polish, the laboriously detailed theme, it creates a disparity that emphasizes just how narrow the game is. And adding a temporal element puts you under such pressure that any pretense of theme is thrown completely to the wayside. So no matter how cool looking Big Daddy Snurpant or Mama Mayhem are, it's just all cubes and colors and time. And speaking of time, no matter how much Stonemaier seems to be billing this as a contrast to existing real-time games out there, this is still a game where thinking fast means you'll do better. You'll feel the pressure of time on every action, and as a result of trying to slip a meeple in before sand runs out, you'll inevitably rock a player board, knock down a timer, or forget some aspect of play. If you flat out don't like real-time games, I don't think this is going to change your mind. Yes, there's a sort of hedging your bets by including a non-timer variant for the game, but if you strip out the real-time element, I think you're missing out on the major thing that makes this game special in the first place, and would be better off by playing a different game. So here are my takeaways. I played this game several times now, and I look forward to playing it more, but I like real-time games, and a large part of the fun that I have with this game is academic. I like seeing weird stuff work in clever ways. So if the real-time aspect is compelling on its own, or the combination of real-time and worker placement is enough of a drive for you just to see it operate and actually function, then yeah, this is going to do it for you. But by the standard of modern engine building games, or interesting themes, or compelling and varied strategy, it's just okay. I do think the game is really well suited to solo. It elegantly shifts around occupied spaces and flips unused timers based on cards that are drawn every time you remove one of your workers. It makes it a bit more measured and gives you more room to breathe, making it different and a bit more contemplative of an experience, which I enjoyed about as much as I did multiplayer. Ultimately, this is a decent game with a really cool gimmick, and the fact that it even works is an achievement in and of itself. But the pool of people who are going to want to play a fantasy-themed, real-time, abstract strategy cube pusher is already pretty small, and even I have some concerns about replayability wearing pretty thin. Pendulum is an ambitious game, and it's certainly the weirdest, though far from my least favorite game in the Stonemaier catalog, but it is a very hard to recommend game. And that is our review. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.